Well, cool. Okay, well, let's just kind of dive in, I guess, huh? So, as far as I can tell, where we left off last time, and here I can drop just the link into the community voice chat um, for ease of convenience. There you are. Um, it seems like we were kind of started to work a little bit on the core team stuff, and then we sort of talked about defining what a core team by is, but what it's not, and more like attack vectors as opposed to people, which I thought was really smart, and it seemed to have some legs at the end of the last meeting. Is that still how we want to do this? I mean, I'm mindful that we really don't want to try to define a core team too much to be exclusionary. Same time, I think the attack vector is kind of like it's a nice way to think about it. What do we think?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay. Anybody have any objections to that?
No objection. I'm still just catching up reading real quick, but that sounds pretty much where I last meeting that I listened to, like it was going that way anyway. Makes sense to me.
Seem to have some support, So I think that the trick is going to be just sort of fleshing that stuff out a bit, and then listing attack vectors and figuring out what those are, right? And so we can spend some time sort of thinking about those things and then marking them on the doc. But I don't know if that's how we want to spend our time right now. I'm kind of more of the mind to start kind of getting in to what I guess is called section 5, working groups and coordinators, just to sort of try to get some meat off the bone and start chunking this thing out a bit. That sound good? And I guess by doing that, you're skipping over the interim treasury management framework, which we could kind of get into a little bit, I guess. But I think maybe until we have sort of that framework, I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like I want to throw that framework up and get it snapshotted and done. But I know that, like, I haven't seen, for example, minimum gravitas around for a while, so I don't know if he's still engaged at all. Daddy Matty's certainly around and can kind of engage that a bit. CB, what are your thoughts about getting that treasury framework dialed in? Or we don't snapshot it, right? And it just kind of lives there. But at some point, we got to deal with it one way or the other,
Was it snapshotable? Was that the case?
I think it was really close. I think it just needed like a final set of eyes to go. I mean, the truth is right? I mean, people's interest in getting into these documents has dropped off precipitously. And I think that at this point, you could get in there, craft a final document, put it up for review for a couple days, and then get it snapshot after some community content or comment. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to do that just for the sake of doing it. As long as we're all happy with it, then yeah, that's cool. But if it's not ready, then really there's no rush.
Yeah, I know. It's just I mean, I agree with you. I think the only place that was left in there was sort of how much do you want to allocate, to stable coins, et cetera, right? So I don't think there's any kind of real contentious provisions to hash out. It's just well, what do you, and right now, of course, maybe you don't want to convert ETH into stable coins, right?
Yeah,
So,
now we're like, oh, okay, well, let's buy more ETH.
right. I mean, that's exactly it. It might have been a nice idea.
I'm gonna buy some NFTs.
I mean, why not? Let's just go all in on illiquid JPEGs in the treasury. I think that's a great idea. That sounds good. So, I mean, I hear you. There's no need to snapshot it for its own sake, but it's almost like maybe you don't worry about this interim treasury management part inside this government document for now until we do have it snapshotted, because otherwise you're just kind of referring to a document that isn't. My thought is, right, is if you're incorporating a document into the governance framework, it should be finalized to a large extent before you talk about it, right? Because otherwise you're talking about a document that you can change at will, and then the reference points kind of get screwed up. So, I mean, that's why I was thinking about it that way.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I haven't even looked at it, to be honest, so I guess I would need to look at it some more. But yeah, I guess that's something that we need to make a decision here soon.
Yeah. Well, maybe let's kind of put it on a list to take a peek at. So I think with that we get down to working groups, right? That's under section 5. Maiko has a heading of working groups, and coordinators. and essentially live fast. That must be. Are you Patrick?
Yep.
I like it. I can tell you're a new-ish to crypto. So that is not an acronym or a typo. It's just sort of like crypto speak for build.
Yeah. Yeah.
You figured it out.
I've noticed I noticed a lot of that. That's why I made the comment that I was just like, what is like, I was like, I couldn't figure it out. And a quick Google, I was like, I don't know what this is. Maybe not. But yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, all good. I mean, so crypto is funny, right? Because it's totally inclusionary, but then sort of the culture that we build in ways is exclusionary because you don't understand kind of what we're talking about. You're not part of the team, right? And it's something that we kind of joke about sometimes, but in some ways it's actually a problem. So yeah, okay. So you guys know. I mean, we have 3 working groups. Governance, Treasury, and Grants, and the language in here. We can all kind of read on our own and see if we have any issues with it. I don't think I need to read the language out loud per se. If you'd like me to, we can. But I think the language that Maiko put in here at one point is certainly fine for governance. Do you guys have the doc pulled up?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, let me.
Yep, I've got it.
Where is this doc? Is it pinned in the governance channel? Is that where it is?
I dropped it into community voice chat too, so it's there.
Oh, okay, cool.
We'll give it a sec so you can catch up. No problem.
All right, all good.
So I think this kind of working group framework was like kind of on the basis that there would be lots of people voluntarily contributing to these working groups
Yeah.
from the community, and that we had the need for individuals to like coordinate those contributions rather than identifying and compensating like specific people to just do the work in those working groups. So I was just curious whether like y'all think that that's still relevant. Like our primary labor would come from volunteer efforts from the community, while the coordinators are necessary to just kind of make that work like coherent, or whether the working group, what we're calling coordinators, would actually just be people who are tasked with doing the work and not relying on volunteer community efforts as much. I don't know. Like it seems like there's this honeymoon period when like the project launches and everybody wants to get involved, and then it's like, oh, you can't really depend on like people continuing to just show up and really dig in. I don't know how you guys feel about all that.
I think that's just totally true and apparent, right? And so we certainly see it in DAO Punks. I'm seeing it in a number of other places as well. I'm sure that you are too. Yeah, I mean, and I would say that like your average, participation level is down, across a lot of the places where I typically kind of hang out, maybe but for Good Morning News. And so certainly in Bankless, right? Like contributor levels are way down. And I don't know if that's necessarily tied to the price of bank or just FUD or what, right? People kind of waking up after COVID. It's hard to say. Yeah, but I agree with you, Maiko. Like, yeah, I would say a couple of things, right? Like one, working groups seemed like a really good idea when we had a lot of people who were interested and we're having these meetings and there were 20 people here and everyone was commenting on documents and the energy in the channels were high, right? That is not the case anymore, you know? And so the question for me is more like, um, you know, once we sort of have some of the content creation mechanisms going, you know, once the grant program is running and there's more flow, you know, will the need for working groups, because this is kind of a prospective document, right? I mean, would the need for working groups, you know, arise and we should account for them, or does it make more sense, honestly, like to just sort of think about committee models? I think one place where I was wrong in some of this stuff was wanting to push for working groups because I was naive, right? Like I thought that people would want to stick around and work and use like the energy of the DAO to want to work without really knowing where the remuneration was coming from. And I'm seeing this as a failure point in a lot of places right now. And I'm feeling the need big time for contributors to be remunerated for their work, right? Because like maybe because of the honeymoon period, maybe because of other factors. But I'm kind of with you, Micah. What do you guys think? I'm curious. What do you see in CB?
Yeah, I agree. I think I've never really understood this space in terms of like people starting to think that everything's like a nonprofit all the time. I think we all pretty much probably got interested in crypto from the very beginning, interested in making money. I mean, that's just kind of the natural progression. So I'm just interested to see this that I don't know that this weird kind of culture has started to happen. I've actually talked to some of my friends about it too, and they see it too. So I always think people should get paid. I mean, unfortunately, we all need money to survive in this world, and that's the number one way to kind of get people motivated. So it's we should definitely use it if we need to.
When you're having those chats with your friends, what are those chats like?
So the guy that I was actually talking to, he's funny. So he used to be he used to be a software developer at NASA. He actually used to write software for the International Space Station, and he
Hmm.
left NASA to work for Dapper Labs, which is you know, better known for Top Shot, NBA Top Shot, and Crypto Kitty
Wow.
and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was just talking with him, and he was just laughing. He's like, "Yeah," he's like, "You know, everybody thinks like DAOs just mean like nonprofit and nobody makes any money." He's like, "It's just so silly." And I agreed with him. I'm like, "I know it is kind of silly because it's like, you know, if I understand if the DAO itself is a nonprofit, that's understandable. But like, if we want to keep people around and we want to make a real difference, then we have to make sure that these people aren't worried about like paying their bills. I mean, that's just common sense." Because if you're worried about paying bills and you're worried about real life stuff, then you really can't take care of other people. You know what I mean? Like, because you're just too busy worrying about yourself. Like one of my friends put it right one time. Actually, I was talking to him about making artwork, and he was like, you know, some of the best artists in the world, they create from abundance. They don't create for the intention of making money. And I think that that's a good way to think about just anything in life. Like, if you want to create, you know, world changing things, you have to create from an abundance mindset, not from a situation where you're looking for money. But I understand that people need money. I'm included in that boat, by the way.
Me too. Yeah. So with that, Micah, go ahead, please, or live fast, or whomever.
I was just gonna say I was thinking about this, thinking about like monetary energy systems and incentive alignment for DAOs in general, but also lots of projects. I think of like there's a two-way path in energy systems where the energy that moves forward has to be reciprocated by energy moving backward at the same time. And like the work is the energy moving forward, and the monetary energy is the energy moving backward. And those two-way energy movements have to be balanced throughout the network for it to be like long-term sustainable system. Um, and it's like kind of based on the idea that attention is the base unit of value, and
Mm.
that the attention that one gives should be reciprocated by equal or greater value in real time for one to continue to give their attention. So I think that energy can, like that value can come in many forms. And like during the honeymoon period, for example, that value is like social energy. So people are getting to know lots of people and they're excited about feeling like they're a part of something. But that value, like they gain that value and then they're satisfied. And then it's like you have to you have to encapsulate that value somehow, and obviously monetary energy is like a it can be translated into any form of value, so that you can pay rent with it or whatever you want, but that's just something that I was thinking about, and I agree with CB. Like, I just think it's important. I think that it's important in the sense that people need to be reciprocated for their energy for a system to be like sustainable.
I like the way you put that. Well, so with that, what does that do to the working group model, right? I mean, for this iteration of the governance doc, is it something that we think about scrapping in place of something, I mean, simple and direct?
Maybe hold off, or like maybe have something in place for like a working group, but realize that like you need to start like for most of these things, we need to start compensating people now in order to get things rolling. We have very little interest. And if that's kind of the more pressing thing, is that if you want to make sure that things get moving forward, where we can gain more interest from people to volunteer their time, then in order to get to that point, we need to start having at least maybe consider just like paying people for their time right now in order to gain those people who would want to be a part of it. Maybe some type of like rolling method of just of like as more people start to funnel in and start to want to be more involved with this and talk about wanting to get involved and do work with it, then maybe we can start pushing them towards like the working group. But for the time being, maybe just start considering just that like we need to have, we need things done, and the only way to get things done is to pay people for their time.
How do you see this playing out, CB?
Like in terms of compensating people, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean, it's an interesting issue, right? Because so where are we at here? Like, you know, we're a few of us are kind of poking away to governance documents slowly over time. Treasury is kind of like a non-thing right now. Chorus, uh, God bless his soul, seems to be pretty happy to assist however he does, and get compensated however he does, which is infrequently at best. So yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question, right? I mean, part of it is like, what are we doing here, right? Are we building out a framework that we want to see, or the one that we actually need to work within? And maybe even to zoom it out a little more, like if participation is way down, which it clearly is, do we expect it to pick back up when the grants program starts moving? I mean, I do, but does that mean all of a sudden that we need to start? We're gonna, need more people to work on governance? I don't know. I think that these are interesting questions. I mean, so we have like, let's think about grants for a minute, right? So we have, you guys, Garrett, Maiko, and Stubbs, creating the handbook, the playbook for that, and then we're going to get into the onboarding cohort zero part of that game, and we're going to need people to review applications, to act as mentors. I mean, CB, do you see paying people for that kind of work? I mean, last month I would have said no, right? But I don't know. I mean, obviously seeing, these compensation issues being, pretty major, I'm also mindful, like our treasury is not that big either, right? So it's an interesting balance that we have to consider.
Yeah. Yeah, I would see a need for that. Yeah, I definitely would.
Or see a need to pay for people's time to sort through applications and do all that stuff, right? To serve as mentors.
Yeah, I mean, really, like in my thoughts, just like zoomed out, would be like, okay, so if we never, if for some reason we never are able to like recoup up our treasury, then I would want to make sure that like what we do spend has like the hardest hitting impact, right? And so it's like,
Right.
okay, so if we're going to be one and done on this grant program, which I'm not saying we are, but let's just say maybe, then I want it to be as effective as possible. And so if we have to pay some people to make sure that like, that it's effective and we put together this really cool grants program, then I think it'd be worth it. You know what I mean? Rather than just kind of doing it haphazard and not putting out like the best possible effort possible, And then really, in my opinion, like, it's the same rules that apply in the business world, right? Like you got to spend money to make money, and really in this case, you got to spend money to attract more money to this DAO for these grants programs, right? Because really, that's going to be the end all or be all for this DAO. Is if we put together a shitty grants program, then what's gonna incentivize DAOs to participate with us, right?
That's
So
right.
it is worth it really to kind of honestly, I know it's probably scary for some to think about, but it probably is really worth it for us to kind of put ourselves into a do or die position, because then at least if it's a die situation, it's like, well, we died on the hill. You know what I mean?
Not that
Seriously.
desperate for the record, guys. The Treasury's not that bad.
Well,
But
no, he does make a great point. We
yes,
are
for sure.
we're effectively trying to play it safe. We're trying to have people volunteer their time to work on projects that they're working on haphazardly, and time is like they'll do a few minutes here, a few minutes there, and they're kind of like scatterbrained with everything else. you know it's kind of like I like give like an analogy, like you if you want if you want the best product that you can get, you're just gonna have to spend it's better to spend the money to have it done right the first time than to just kind of like wing it. Like when you have when you get yourself a house, like there are obviously things that you could do on your own to save like a quick buck, paint the walls yourselves, do a few things, but you're not like winging plumbing or electrical work. Like no, like you're gonna have somebody do that for you, it's like there's only so far that we can go without like running on like the best intentions or like trying to do it ourselves. Does this make sense?
For sure it does. Yeah, I totally understand. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, you might be kind of like, um, I don't remember what the term you used, CB, but like basically like, you know, put our treasury into a bunch of grants and then call it good because we burned through our treasury kind of thing is like that's one possible outcome. Whereas another possible outcome is that we set up like an infrastructure where we're bringing in income, and it's like if we don't put the resources into creating a quality framework where we can present ourselves as like an organization that can receive money and distribute that money in line with our mission statement. Um, like if we don't put the resources into building that out because we want to use what we have to the greatest extent that we can to give out as much grants as we can, we're kind of setting ourselves up to just um, to just kind of burn out and then have nothing left. But if we put the energy and the money and resources into setting this up so that we build something really good, then we can bring in like a continuous income, and it's like so it's like finding that balance because I totally get where you're coming from, and I think it seems like generally that's how we've been approaching this. It's like, wow, this treasure we have is for grants. We can't spend any of it on anything else. We have to use all of it as grants. So that means that everything has to be volunteer work. But it's like I'm not sure that that's gonna create like a very high quality um, like framework organization for this to happen. Um, another thing is like I've been talking with the Givith, the folks at Givith and Gitcoin and stuff. Like I'm excited to share more of what I've learned here because I've picked up a ton of really good stuff for us. But um, I think that we'll be able to easily get a lot of funding from Gitcoin and Givith for this once we have like a functioning framework, or even before we have anything that functions. People put like just the most like minimal effort pitch on there and get funded like 30 grand, um, and then lots of other projects have just like continuous streams of money coming in from those. So yeah.
I'm glad you brought that back up, Maiko. I mean, there was some talk of trying to get plugged into the Gatecoin Grants program, a couple months ago, and then I think the holidays hit and we all sort of got distracted, and then here we are, right? So yeah, I would agree. So what does that look like from your conversations generally? What would that process look like, do you think? I know we're away from governance now, but honestly, like I think the things we're talking about are a little more important.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I have one friend who I've been spending a lot of time with who's doing Acorn DAO, which is like a native ecology restoration project. And he wrote like a couple paragraphs worth of content on his plan. And basically, because of the quadratic funding protocol on Gitcoin, like the community like donated $2,000 to his project, but because that was divided by so many people, that got matched with $30,000. So he got $30,000 for just this like minimal pitch where he didn't build out any of his project yet. He didn't have any like working prototype or anything. Um, and yeah, so it can be like extensive and or it can be minimal. Obviously, I think we have a lot more to offer than what he put up there. Like I think DAO Punks is like, yeah, people are gonna love seeing DAO Punks on Gitcoin, and I think it's gonna grab a lot of attention. And there's a lot of people just going through there, just putting little small donations all over the place, and it's really cool because the small donations make a difference because of the quadratic funding. So it gets matched depending on like how many people actually give to it. And being that we're like tied into Bankless DAO and stuff, I think we can like mobilize like a large community of folks to donate little amounts to our Gitcoin grant and get matched with like an outsized, amount.
And then timing wise, would you imagine wanting to do something like that after the first cohort was through, or during the first cohort? I mean, sooner rather than later. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have enough funding now, to like, I think if we get cohort
Mhm.
0 done, then it'll be like really evident to everybody that we're doing what we're saying that we're doing. And so I would personally think that waiting till after cohort 0, because we're not dying for the funds right now, it would be more advantageous to wait until we have a product.
Yeah, I agree. Other comments?
Yeah, I actually met Griff myself while I was there. We talked a lot about Givith, and he encouraged me to do the same thing. Um, I think we're very aligned with what we're trying to accomplish, the people we're trying to bring into the space. Um, not that we have to say it's a nonprofit or charity work, but the idea is just to help people, get into the space, build, etc. And I don't know, he seemed very confident, like what Mike was saying is true. Like when the time comes, it seems like there would definitely be a helping hand if we need it, and just a
What
way
is
to get our name out there more.
sure? What is Giveth?
So that's his project, not just his, but I believe I don't know what his position is, the creator or the original member or whatever, but essentially it's designed to gamify charitable donations, where it's not just you're giving money away, but you're actually creating microeconomies via token systems and reputation systems. So um, I can't speak to it too much more in depth right now because it gets really into the tokenomics past that. But the idea is to gamify donations, so there is not only a potential upside, but you can actually create a sustainable kind of microeconomy.
Interesting. What do you think, CB?
Sinjin's was talking about them, super energized about doing stuff with them. So I guess they like I think they had seen Sinjin's like pitch on his other project that he's working on, his like buyback our attention. And so he got linked up with Givith, and I think Sinjin is talking with them about potentially helping them with some like crypto friendly marketing. I guess Givith and like I guess what's the grant giving DAP or the DAP that we were just talking about. Uh
Gitcoin
uh,
grants?
Like
Is that what you
Gatecoin
yeah,
Grants.
yeah, Gitcoin. I think like Gitcoin and Giveth and like all of them. I think they're trying to put together like a crypto awareness campaign that's like more guerrilla and tries to like onboard more people into crypto and Web3. I think St. John's been talking,
Absolutely.
and he talked to me about joining on. He actually added me to their Telegram. I'm in a Telegram chat with all those people right now. I haven't looked at it, to be honest, but I need to. But yeah, it sounds cool. I mean, St. John's said that they were some cool guys, and he saw some potential synergies there for DAO punks. And he also said he talked with the same people uh, regarding those grants as well. Said that we probably could get some of that. And that's kind of what I was saying earlier. Like again, I don't know. I've always been in this mindset. Maybe it's because I come from like the investor world and acquisition world. I feel like if we put together something really badass, I don't think we're gonna have a problem finding money. I really don't. I think it just depends how good it is, you know?
Well, so let's pivot to
I,
that
I
conversation.
agree.
Like, I mean, should we be spending more? I mean, the governance framework, right? Great. Like, we can always kind of poke around at that, and really, like, hardly any DAOs. I mean, like, Bankless DAO doesn't have a governance framework, for example, right? Um, I mean, should we be putting the time we're using on these meetings, just kind of, poking at this thing, and instead trying to figure out, what we can do to really make this first cohort zero, the best it can be? Is that a higher and better use of our time? Maybe.
I would say so, to be honest. Yeah, because again, like if that's our end goal, then the way my brain works, it's like, well, what do we need governance for if this doesn't work, right?
Correct.
Like, let's
Yeah.
focus on making it. It's kind of like the classic conundrum of like that I see a lot of entrepreneurs. Like everybody always has a great idea, and then what's the first thing they start doing? They start making websites and they start making marketing. It's like, and they make shirts and little koozies. It's like, no, come on, focus on the product first. Like you can build all the other stuff around it. Even with like, uh, all the small businesses that I'd run into in the past too, they all had horrible accounting. They barely were paying their taxes, and it's not because they don't want to. It's because they're so busy building the business that they're not working on the business, right? Or working um, in the business, and so
Right.
I think that we need to almost have that mentality at first too. Like we need to just make this grant program like our absolute end all be all. And then if it works, there's going to be some growing pains, but we'll just go back later and try to fix them then.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, the governance stuff to me made some sense when there's a lot of, really high energy, a lot of participation. People were really interested in building like innovative governance frameworks. Uh, but now that's not really the case, right? I mean, a few of us here, I don't know that you love governance, CV. Micah's really interested intellectually. I am. I'm not sure that Garrett is, but maybe, and maybe Live Fast too. But it strikes me that it is way better use of our time. We have these organized meetings to focus on the prize here, right? And so maybe going forward, we just don't even worry about governance for a while. We can poke at the document in our free time if we want, and then use this hour on Friday and then the hour on Thursday, to sort of dial in grants even more and more each time, right?
Yeah. And I'm on the mindset too, to be honest. Like, if there's anybody that has any problems with like, oh, us making decisions, it's like, well, guess what? Like you can join these calls too. So like, and they're recorded and everything. I mean, this stuff is out there. So it's not like, in the end of the day, it's like if only 5 people want to participate in making decisions, well, then that's super easy. We can just do votes
So
right
be
here.
it.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So, and then once it grows, then we can figure out how to fix those pains,
I think that's right. So,
Yeah, it's like here's our governance framework. We make decisions at our meetings. That's it.
we
Yeah,
ratify that. Yeah, totally. That's right.
unfortunately, it's like, we have to. I mean, and really it's not our fault. It's the community. If they want to put us in a position that has to happen, then that has to happen.
Well,
So,
I mean, there's been no pushback to the things that have been happening so far, right? I
yeah.
mean, there've been some questions which are legit, for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's been more difficult personally for me to motivate to worry about governance when there's nobody to govern, right? Or no processes to govern, or no. I mean, I like
No
it because I
participants. Yeah.
find governance interesting, but I don't need to find it interesting for its own sake at Dow Punks, right? I mean, what we got to do is fucking kill the grants program. I mean, like in the good way, not in the dead way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, what we got to do is we got to spend the money in our treasury. That's what we got to
Right.
do.
Yep.
Nobody likes making rules for situations that have yet to occur, because who enjoys that?
Well, some of us psychos actually do enjoy that, right?
Not
But
lawyers do.
that's the problem. But making it like, there was some. I mean, it was before your time, Live Fast, but there was some really exciting energy around innovative governance frameworks. And then as December wore on into January, like that, it got whittled down to this, basically quadratic funding or quadratic formula for Snapshot, and that's about it. But there was all kinds of cool ideas floating around. But then, when it came time to really kind of get it done, either the tech wasn't there or the will to sort of really work on it, by people outside of this room decreased, and for the reasons that we talked about. So like here we are, right? And so
Well, and
yeah,
let's be honest too, it probably is a blessing in disguise as well, because it is very hard to get things done meaningfully when there's a lot of participation. So, I mean, that is a thing as well.
it is just so true, and like
Easier to be creative when you have creative freedom. So,
yeah, I was just like you know um yeah, I mean, truly, like the first couple of months in DAOs, I was just like, great, people just want to work hard and they're not too worried about getting paid. And like maybe that's because ETH was rising and Bank was rising and whatever else was rising, around the ecosystem. But now clearly, like that's not the case. And contributor, retention and payments is a huge fucking deal. And we need to pay to play. So, and fortunately, we have a treasury that we can deploy to do that, right?
exactly. So, I guess everybody agrees here that from now on until we hit our, our goals with some of these putting out the grants, the first cohort 0, any of the meetings will just focus on that. Does that sound good?
That works for me.
Maiko, you good?
Yeah, that sounds fine. Yeah, I'm just like reflecting on like the effort put into like governance, and I feel like maybe part of the energy for that was like part of our mission was to be a DAO, right? And then we're like, what does that mean? And then we're like, wow. And this is such a funny thing. Like, honestly, I'm a little bit disenchanted about DAOs at this point because
Mhm.
I'm also very excited still, but in like, but after seeing like what's happening in DAOs and just kind of like, it's a lot of like this, like what needs to be a DAO and like what doesn't need to be a DAO according to what I think a DAO is, right? And then what does somebody else think a DAO is and whatever. And it's just kind of like at a point where it's like, well, you can just be like a Web3 company, you know, that uses like Web3 tools to manage your
Yeah.
company. You know what I mean? And
I
it doesn't have to be this like giant like thing that involves like thousands of people. And it's like, we're just trying to give out grants here, like how many people does it take to run, a company that gives out grants? Like it just takes a handful of like very focused people who put in like high quality work and focus on, making something happen in a good way.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I was just gonna say too, like I've thought about that as well. Like, what if, what if the definition of DAOs change, which I already think they have, and I
Mhm.
think they will continue to change. But like, what does that mean for like us, for instance? Because the name of our brand is DAO Punks, right? But I kind of think it'll be like it could potentially just evolve into this thing where like if you were in a DAO back in the day, it's like known as like an OG DAO, right? Like, the modern day DAO at that time will be a lot different. Maybe they don't even call them DAOs anymore, but it's kind of like the modern day cypherpunks, the people who like created, cryptography and all that stuff, which ended up creating crypto. We don't call people that use cryptographers or anything like that. But I'm
Right.
sure there's
And
still some OGs back in the day that used to. And so maybe DAOs and DAO punks will be kind of like that OG status one day.
Mhm.
well, also, I mean, just because we want to help people transition into DAO work and groom these DAO punks doesn't necessarily mean we have to be a DAO. I still think we should in time, but if we're grooming people for DAO work, I still think that fits with the name and the mission.
Yeah, 100%. I think we're all still learning, so it's just yeah. I think the best thing to be is flexible. I hate seeing people that are just closed-minded and not open to change. So we just have to stay open-minded and just always be looking at stuff like how does this affect the overall ecosystem? And there's going to be times where we need to ditch concepts that don't work. And I'm not saying DAOs are that, but I think we're starting to see some things in DAOs that shouldn't be done, and we're learning.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that like the trend seems to be going in the direction that Web3 organizations are DAOs, and that's like seems to be solidifying that if you're like using Web3 and you're a group of people, you're a DAO, and that seems to
India
be
is
like
nonprofit.
generally. Well, yeah, I mean, and then I'm also getting to know like a lot of really interesting DAO tooling, right? And I think like we are at a point where we're excited about this new way of making organization, but the technology isn't at a point where we can both focus on doing what we want to do, which is give out grants and build a DAO at the same time. It's like if you want to build a DAO, that's like most of your energy at this point because the technology is just streamlined. But now there's some DAO tooling out there that looks really interesting, that I think that we'll be able to utilize to basically like make this. It will be a DAO, but it won't absorb like so much of our energy to try to make that happen. Um, anyway, so yeah, I'm gonna be spending some of my time like pouring through some of that DAO tooling, and maybe I'll present some of those ideas with you guys like at a later time. But yeah,
Yeah, I wish you would. I could dive down the DAO tooling rabbit hole as well, but my time for real exploration and stuff like that these days is pretty limited. So I would love that. I'll compensate you personally in my own bank for that because I'm that interested. But well, good. I think these are important. This has been a really good conversation, and I think it's practical, it's real, and it speaks to like kind of where we are and where we need to go in the short term, right? And so we will backburn governance, we'll backburn treasury, not worry about this stuff, and then I guess we kind of need to start talking at some point about paying people for the work on the grants who are not part of the champions, right? And that's okay. So we can cross that bridge as well. But yeah, I mean, live fast. You're the only person that's not like sort of compensated in some way here. I mean, I guess CB and I are not really compensated here either, but that's a different story. But like live fast. What are your thoughts around compensation? Just because I'm curious, right? Like Garrett and Micah are getting some ETH to do the grants work they're doing. I'm just wondering, like, what do you see as your contribution going forward in a way that helps the grants program?
I mean, like is this like how I can contribute and how like what I can expect to compensate, or how do I envision like the grants program being done, and just or like my overall take on everything?
No, the former, and not necessarily how you expect to be compensated, but I'm more concerned about this point about like what do you see spending your time doing? Because you've been showing up to meetings here for like a month, right? And it's great. And I'm curious how you want to spend your time to move the grants forward, the grants program forward. Like where do you see, the best use of your skills and talents to do that?
I'm gonna be honest, my skills and talents are pretty much useless for you guys. I'm here to just like learn as much as I can. I am basically your volunteer that shows up to like these things, and it just be like, you just tell me what like. I'll help what I can do. I could do basic stuff. Um, I'm just trying to learn. But I'm also like I'm weird right now. Like I'll do like I'm doing small things. I could do very small things pretty well. Like as you like I mentioned, I was like, oh, I'll take notes for you guys. I'll organize things. I'll do these. I'll do like I'll create documents for you that are all neat so that way everybody can retrieve it. That's about like the extent of like my skill set I can offer you guys. Whether or not I need to be compensated for that, that's up to you guys. Like I don't really think so, but like I also like my dream is that like my compensation is the idea that my DAO punk value skyrockets. That is my dream goal. And I feel that if I can contribute to that, if I can contribute to you guys like getting where you need to go, that my inherent value of my DAO punk will also increase. And that's what I'm hoping for. So that's why like that's where I see that's where I'm seeing my compensation for right now for what I can. I don't if I had other skill sets, I would be like, oh yeah, I'll take care of this, and then like I'll just like pitch you a number of like, oh, I'll write the governance done, and then like here's how much it'll cost me to do it. Like I don't have that kind of skill set, but like maybe that is something to consider about just like one and done.
Yeah, well, so you're saying, I mean, one of your skills though is keeping track of information, right?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have a lot of that coming at us before too long, when the
Uh,
onboarding starts.
Yeah. Well, it'll also depend on what how that looks like. I could,
Of
but you
course.
know, it large like right now. I'm just trying to figure out, try to help with small things that I see. Notes in meetings tends to help, especially for cursory glance, because I don't think anybody's really going back and reading the watching or listening to the videos, and we also just don't have a great place to like go find this information. I was like looking through some stuff and I was just like, you have to literally scroll for a while to find like dates and times of like when these meetings happen. And yeah, I don't know. It's just, simple things.
No, that
No,
I
and
agree completely. And if I could just butt in for 1 second, Hero, I mean,
please, buddy.
I think you hit a lot of important points, but I guess the point is, if there were a way, for us to leverage your skill set, as the grants program evolves here, whether, it has to deal with sorting through applications or data or, just aggregating data. The point is, do you have the bandwidth to, to put in the time? Because, for example, we had at least 2 or 3 people that were qualified to do the grants work that Maiko and Stubbs and I are doing, but they just didn't have the time or the bandwidth. So, I mean, is it something that you would want to do if there was the opportunity to leverage your skills?
You know, obviously it largely will be, it'll largely determined based on if I have the time available. I've got time carved out, but like obviously I can't predict the future, but I'd be interested in trying to help out as much as I can. Like I said, that's why I'm attending these meetings. I'm trying to help out where I can, where I feel like I could be the most useful. um so yeah, I guess I would like to for right now. If this turns into like, but like you also have to understand, a lot of the time that like I spend with you guys is very minimal. Like maybe a couple, like I attend 2 meetings a week for an hour, maybe a little bit more. And then whatever cursory work is just like maybe like an hour or 2 afterwards. If we're talking like you need me to do more, like if the amount of hours that I need to do stuff needs to like exceed like 10, 15. And if I'm like looking at like 20 hours of like work that I need to do, then like we have to start talking about like that's like a small part-time job. When do we cross that line of like small volunteer work that's not that like, that's nice to have that it, but like and like kind of critical, but like not like you need a full-time person to take care of. Does that make sense?
Totally. I think that I love the way you're framing this stuff, right? And so, and you're not like, like so many of us do with things like say, oh yeah, man, I'm all over that, right? And then whatever happens. So you're being very reasonable and measured. So I think that's awesome. I'm glad you're here. Uh, and we'll see where we are when the time comes to use the skills that you have and what your bandwidth is and what your interest is, right?
Yeah. I mean that's very reasonable and to be expected. You let me know. It just like, and I'll chime in with the best offer I can. Like if I have time, I will do what I can. Obviously, I want like I have we all have a vested interest in this.
We sure do, boss. Um, well, I love it. That all sounds great, guys. So let's wrap this baby up, and we will refocus all our efforts toward getting the grants the best it can be. I think that is awesome. I think we actually oddly made a ton of progress today in some ways, and really was more mindful of what the realities are of the world that we're in. So I appreciate that, guys.
Yeah, let's just make a kick-ass grants program. It's gonna be awesome.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's right. So okay, so all the tangential stuff goes away for now, and we just focus on grants. Um, Michael and Garrett, let me know how and where I can help. I'm aware of those, those kind of couple of tasks on your guys' spreadsheet, and that, Garrett, you're going to send me some language at some point to revise, and that Stubbs and I, at some point, are going to get into coordinate and dial that in. In between now and then, like,
Nice.
just let me know. Let me know what you guys need.
Nice. Oh yeah, and also
Thanks, Hero.
I wanted to compliment CB on that video with Argon. That was badass.
Oh, dude, that was so sweet.
Oh,
That
Just
was
Yeah,
saw it.
awesome.
dude,
yeah,
where did
thank you.
that come from? That's so cool.
Thanks.
We've been working on that piece for like like 3 months.
Wow.
And they were getting impatient, and rightfully so. They were getting impatient, but we were just, we were dealing with the shirt drop and everything over here, and then also other stuff that everyone's doing, just life. And then he's Denver, and me and Sinjin were just like, look, we're gonna get it to you, don't worry. And then finally, it's just so funny because like, we basically finished it like right with all this like war going on and everything, and it really is like almost the best possible time to drop something like that. So it should be cool. They're gonna drop it on their Twitter and stuff, and they have
It
a lot of
seemed like it
followers.
was in direct response to current events, honestly. It was couldn't have been better timing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, it's cool. Yeah, so we're excited. So we'll see. They should be posting it out around, and they they're big DAO, but they're still trying to figure out their stuff. So it should be cool. So hopefully we'll get some traction from that. Maybe we'll get a couple stragglers that'll find us, and maybe we'll find some new contributors. Never know. So and then they paid us for it, so we're going to be kicking back money to the treasury, so the treasury will be getting even more money. So yeah, it's all good. I mean, and then we actually have another collab in the works as well. So like we have money coming in, we've got some cash flow. It's just now we just have to figure out how to spend it, which it
I mean,
sounds like
that's
you're working towards that.
yeah. No, that's the interesting thing, right? Is there is some flow coming in. I mean, there's some flow from the sweatshirts. There's flow from these collabs, and there's more on the horizon.
Yeah, and to be honest too, another interesting way we could look at some of these too before I let you guys go is like if we look at Cult DAO, and I know Cult DAO is like hasn't even been able to get off the ground yet because of other circumstances, but the way that they were basically giving away grants per se was like that the grantee, the project had to basically give tokens back to the DAO like equity, and then the DAO was basically getting cash flow from these, this future value that was going to be generated from these projects that they were investing in. So another approach too is like maybe eventually one day we get to the point to where we can also be giving grants away to projects, and in return, they give us their illiquid tokens, and hopefully one day those tokens won't be illiquid, and then we can cash those out and take those gains and funnel it back into the treasury again. So that's another interesting way to think about giving away grants. It's almost like a self, it keeps generating for itself.
Totally. Yeah. I feel. Did you mention that at some point a month or two ago, CB? That's kind of ringing some bells in the back of my mind.
Yeah, the cult DAO. It's such a cool concept, and I told everyone about it because I'm like, it's truly like one of the first decentralized DAOs. It's got automatic treasury triggers and everything. And the governance is really innovative and cool. The only problem though is that like it's freaking tanked. So they haven't been able to finalize the everything. They're basically waiting. The treasury has to be filled up to like 15 ETH in order to test the levers that they have set up, like this whole tokenomics that they have. And since the price has dropped so dramatically, we haven't been able to get to 15 ETH. So we're all just kind of sitting around waiting for that to happen. But all of their tokenomics and the governance and everything, like it's all logically sound. It's just we haven't seen it in practice yet. So but I still think we can learn from that from a DAO like that, and maybe even potentially like, we could even approach a DAO like that and even maybe fork some of their actual technology in the future as well. But that's another story.
Interesting story. Yeah, and I don't mean, and not to kind of go back on this, I don't mean Colt Dow in particular, but I just mean like, were we some point talking about doing treasury swaps with other DAOs as part of the grants program? Maybe I'm just conflating something else. It wasn't related to Colt Dow though, but it's not that important. Let's move
Yeah,
on.
I think there's a lot of creative ways. Again, I think number one problem that DAOs are having right now is retaining talent and finding good talent. And so we can become known in the community as sourcing good talent, then I think we can find lots of DAOs that would love to find creative ways to work with us and give us money.
I think that's right. So, well, and as we clear some of this other distraction away and focus on again what the core mission is, which you know, lest we forget, it'll allow the creativity to rise once again. So cool. All right, guys, I'm gonna stop the recording. Um, it's been a pleasure as always. Appreciate your time and attention, my friends.
Yes, thank you guys. Thanks for everybody showing up, and we will just keep going. And to be honest, it hasn't been that long. It feels longer than it is, but if you compare like past lifetime to now, it's like we've done so much in such little time.
Hmm.
I always have to remind myself that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're doing awesome stuff.
All right, guys, we'll have a good rest of your day, and I'm gonna bounce.
Oh, actually,
care.
can I have? I have two things. One, Hero just wanted to say thanks for the tip of bank yesterday. You really didn't need to do that, but I appreciate it. Thanks. And two, I had a question for you guys since you guys are like I didn't know if this was appropriate, but I wanted to ask. Would you be are we allowed to use the Dalpunk logo to like make other like small merch? I wanted to take the Dalpunk logo and make a patch I could put on my backpack.
Yeah,
I didn't
do
know
it.
if I need approval for that or if that was okay. Or if,
No, do it. That's all you.
okay, cool. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, live fast. I mean, the NFTs and IP is like at the cutting edge of technology and law. So it's actually a really interesting topic if you want to get geeky on it. But CV has given you the blessing. So yeah, and send me a patch while you're at it, dude. I'll take one.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just kidding, pal.
oh, I mean, I was about to say like depending on the situation, I may have to order like 10 just to get like the one I want. But like,
Well,
I
you
was
let me
like,
know. I mean, I'll buy some of those. I mean, I'll buy some with you if that ends up being the case, like for sure. In fact, I'll just buy some with you anyway. So why don't you just let me know, live fast?
okay, yeah, cool. I will. I'll go look into it and I'll go see what my options are. But and I'll just DM you, I guess. But awesome, cool.
You could
Cool.
always
I
hit
love
up
it.
Sinjin also. Sinjin had some patches made for that last sweater. And also Sinjin might even want to use some of these patches for something. So maybe talk to him. Maybe you could spark up a cool conversation with
Yeah.
Sinjin. He likes that stuff. He could give you some pointers.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I didn't even think to ask. Okay, sweet. Yeah, I will. Thank you. Appreciate it. See, these meetings are nice. Like especially when they're not like there's no direction. If you just have like random comments, I literally look forward to we have our first community just like no nonsense like nothing just talk on Tuesday, right?
Mhm.
I look forward to that. I wonder if it'll just be like me or if like other people will show up be like, "Hey, what's going on?"
I think people will show up. Yeah. I think there's a lot of people that are interested, but I think a lot of people are just busy with life. And they just trust. I mean, you can tell people trust the project because the floor stays pretty consistent at point two. And if people weren't trusting and they wanted to ditch, they could just start tanking the floor. And we haven't seen that happen really. So that just means that people trust and they're just busy. I think that's what it is.
Oh, also, do you guys about like circling back to the hoodies? Did those ship yet, or is that like another like couple weeks out?
Yeah. So those are all they have to be. It's produced on demand. So basically, yeah, they have to be made still.
Oh, okay, cool,
Yeah,
cool,
that way
cool.
we're big on like not waste, and so really we're only producing what people order. That way we're not like stocking inventory and ends up just wasteful.
Yeah. Also, like if you have like an inventory like that, you have to like I doubt like the manufacturer's gonna hold it for you. You would have to be like sent out to like one of you guys to hold onto it and then redistribute later, which is also like not what you guys want, I assume.
Yeah, so they're custom too. So basically the hoodie is a high quality blank. I think it's a white hoodie actually. Sinjin said, and then we have to ship those hoodies to our dye house, and then the dye house dyes them black, and then they wrap them up and do that like splatter pattern on them, and then the dye house has to then ship them back to our manufacturer, and then our manufacturer has to sew on all of the patches, and then they do the printing, and then they fulfill it. So yeah, it has to go through a few hands before it's done, but it's all handmade and all made in the United States. It's like organic. It's just super cool.
Cool. I look forward to it. It'll be like my first like legit street apparel that I've ever owned.
Yeah, same here. I don't have anything like that. Like I don't know of any companies that are making legit tie dyes right now, but yeah, so that one's pretty cool.
Very cool. Yeah, I don't have anything like that either. Like I'm super stoked. Um, I love it. And then live fast final thoughts. Like, I don't like Notion generally, but maybe you should just fire up a free Notion account for DAO punks and do
I'm
that.
sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know what a free Notion account. Notion. Oh, Notion. That's the shite. There was that's like a site that you guys were using yesterday for the like when you were assigning people the rules and the tasks with the deadlines. Right? No, I don't know what that is.
No, you might be right. I wasn't paying close enough attention to realize what the interface was that you were plugging into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was Notion.
Oh,
But if you just go to notion.com, I don't think it's XYZ. And then you can create a free Notion account and use that for now. And then you can throw links to that and share. Like, no big deal.
okay, cool. Yeah.
Or whatever infrastructure you want to use. Like, I am infrastructure agnostic. I personally don't like Notion, but it's just kind of what everybody uses in this space for worse, quite frankly. So if there's a better idea, maybe ping your pal B17, right? He probably has a better idea.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised he wasn't here today, but yeah, I'll ask him. This is just for like aggregating the our videos and links and stuff, right? Yeah. I'll ask him about that. Cool. All right. Yeah, no worries. I'll try to get that done this weekend. I'll work on it. That sounds like a fun, like mindless topic I could do while listening to music.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to help, guys.
Really appreciate it. Well, hey guys, cool. So have a nice week, and we'll see you all around the DAO, and see you next Thursday for grants.
Yep. Now it's
sounds
grant.
good.
Cool. All right, guys. Take it easy.
Ciao.
Later.
Cheers, guys.